And welcome to our live streaming today. And I got a really special guest in the house. It's been, oh my gosh, I don't know how long since I've had you on the air, but I think it's well over a year.
It has, sir.
Mr. Chuck Speake in the house. I am super stoked about this. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Public Works is busy as always. I'm glad to be here, get to talk to you and go over some of these topics.
Fantastic. We've got to give us a quick Chuck Speak overview of what's happening in Public Works.
Sure. So Public Works is a big department. We've got 6 different divisions. So we handle everything from roads to drainage, your stormwater, all your engineering. We also do solid waste pickup. We maintain all of the city vehicles, and we also maintain all the buildings and grounds in the city as well.
Fantastic. You guys have how many crews now? How many people?
203 at the time.
Wow. Wow.
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to ask you that tricky question because everybody's going to ask it sooner or later. With the projections that are happening in November, and I think we're all kind of geared towards everybody going to say yes to it. How are we sitting in Public Works for handling that transition dollar wise?
Sure. So Public Works, the 2 largest divisions in Public Works are solid waste and road and drainage. Those are actually districts, so they're funded through assessments, not through millage rate. So there will be some impact, but it will be minimal as compared to the general fund departments such as parks and PD. So we're preparing along with everyone else. We do have facilities maintenance and fleet, which will be impacted. So we're preparing, looking at our budgets, getting as tight as we can on those, which you'll see as we propose those and present those to commission in the upcoming months.
Fantastic. You've got there's a ton going on this time of year anyway, but how are things progressing across the board for you guys with recycling and different things like that? Because I brag about us nonstop because I think one of the words that I keep throwing out is sustainability, and I think our recycling program up and down the coast outperforms everybody else's with that word. Can you kind of talk about how we are creative with that and innovative in our own way to bring that revenue stream back?
Sure. So recycling, and we're one of the few municipalities that don't single stream. We use dual stream, is why you have your extra totes. We separate that material because when the material is clean and separated, we can get a share of that money back when we take that to the processor. So just an example, if we're paying $60 a ton for garbage to get rid of garbage, I believe this year our average is somewhere between $30 and $40 a ton to get rid of or for recycle, right? So we're saving $20 to $30 a ton just by recycling correctly. Now, as the market gets better, this has been a kind of a bad year or slower year for recycling as far as the profits and the cost share that we get, just because materials have gone down. But there are times where we actually get a check back from the recycler because when materials go up, we get that cost share. So it has saved us millions of dollars over the last decade that would have just gone to the landfill, as well as preserving the landfill, right? Landfills aren't immeasurable and forever. So the least amount of waste we can put in that landfill, the longer it will last for the county.
It's kind of crazy how that number works and fluctuates every year. Do you think our participation is higher than it has been in the past?
So our recycling numbers are showing that we're going up in recycling. It's hard to gauge that with the intense growth we have in population, right? So every time we try to get a gauge on how good we're doing in recycling versus our waste, you have to compare the numbers. We're still bringing in between 30 and 40 new homes in Northport a week. So process that in your head, so that's 140 new residents a month that we are serving as new customers. So, we have to gauge those numbers that way. And there's a learning curve for those new residents and new customers as they come in to teach them the way we do things. We do single side pickup, again, for efficiency, those sort of things. And then as well as the recycling, when we have a new resident that comes to town, we send one of our people out, one of our planner schedulers. They meet with those people. They explain to them the program, because we would really like to have voluntary compliance and have these people recycle and help save money all across the board for all of our residents.
We've done a really good job in the past, but we're kind of in the start of hurricane season. And I know that's a hot button for all of you guys at City Hall and in Public Works. 2 different locations, same branding, but can you talk a little bit about hurricane season, what you guys are projecting out right now? And then I'm sure we'll circle back around with debris and trash and all that.
Sure. So I may have missed the first part of your question there, but hurricane season. Right now, we're looking pretty good. It's an emergency management can speak better to the forecast. I watch the weather every day as part of Public Works and moving stormwater. That's one of the things we keep our eyes on. At this time of year when we're not active, typically we get active a little later in the season.
Right.
What we ask is that the residents start cleaning up around their properties. Check your drainage pipes. If you're next to an outfall that goes into a waterway or an R ditch, make sure that's clean and clear. If it's not, give us a call. We can take a look at it. Your driveway pipes, extremely important. Make sure nothing's stuck in those pipes. They're good for collecting baseballs, footballs, basketballs, any kind of thing that could float down there and lodge. And we've seen all kinds of things get in there. And as well, if the pipe is sumped or full of sand or dirt, right, that's going to block the drainage for your whole neighborhood. So if you have those things going on, now's the time to deal with those. When we have a hurricane on the horizon and you call Public Works and say, oh, I think my pipe is plugged, and we get out there and take a look at it, we may have other priorities at that point as we're preparing for a storm to get here. So give us a call now. Let us take a look at those issues. Let us resolve those issues and keep your neighborhood safe.
We still have we don't have the mobile app, but they can still go online and highlight it there, right?
Correct. They can go to North Report, and it's web-based now. It's not app-based. So you can go to the City of Northport page. There's a nice little banner there. You can click on North Report. It's a very interactive kind of reporting service that gets the information straight to us with a location and everything else. And then our team gets those North reports. They sort through those and get them to the right area. And then our planner schedulers or our inspectors will come out and take a look at your problem.
Fantastic. So we've got the next topic up, and we'll keep this going. But you kind of talked a little bit about the stormwater. How are we looking there with the stormwater systems?
So our system looks good right now. We've been a bit in a drought. I've got a lot of capacity in the system. That can change quickly, as you know, in Florida. We get a couple of good rainstorms and fill the system up. But the system is operating as it should right now. The creek is the clearest it's been, just because we had all that work done in the last year where we did that very large creek clearing project to remove all the debris and blockages from the creek. So we're excited. Last year was the first year that was clear, and we had kind of a dry, rainy season, so we didn't get to gauge the impact of that so much. Not that I'm complaining about a dry, rainy season and lack of storms. I would prefer that. But as we get closer to this rainy season, it'll be interesting to see how that creek and the clearing project really affects the drainage overall as the system builds up and fills with water. But the rest of our system, we're on our regular course. I have water control structure guys out every day. They're monitoring the structures. They're maintaining the structures, making sure our gates work. There are 64 structures out there, so it's a lot to do. And we also have currently, I think, 4 water control structures in design. 2 of those made possible through grants that we got through the state. And those will be going into construction in the next year.
How are we looking with the the storm along with Price Boulevard. We've got some transitioning going on there. So can you
Sure.
kind of highlight that for everybody too? And while
Sure.
you're talking about that, I'll be right back.
Yes, sir. So Price Boulevard's a huge project for us. That project, as part of that project, we have increased the capacity of those 4 crossings that we lost during Ian to try to avoid that in the future. So they've been designed for a much larger storm than they had previously been designed for. So the intent is that if we have a storm of that nature again, that roadway will remain open, as it's, as we all know that we're here, it's our major east-west corridor, and losing that road was painful for everybody involved. It slowed down emergency response. It slowed down our response as far as clearing streets. So we're trying to avoid that. Currently, the Price project is about 35% complete. As we come into storm season, we do take into account those construction activities at those crossings. And as you can see at the McCaughey crossing, we built kind of a bypass road so we can keep Price Boulevard open. That will allow water to still flow and allow them to finish their construction project. As we move further down Price, I've got 2 more crossings, that need to be done. And as the time comes, we'll decide the best way to address those crossings. It most likely will be an alternate road like we built for this last one at the McCaughey. The Blue Ridge is already constructed, so that one is constructed to handle that larger storm if it was ever to hit. And basically, we tried to harden that road along every one of those crossings. Anyone else that's travels Price daily, you'll see that work still continues on the sides of Price between Sumter and Toledo. They're finishing up the water and sewer installation, the water mains and sewer mains that are going through there, as well as on the Sumter end, they're starting to put in the stormwater system and the inlets, which is all that storage, all that stormwater will be going underground and into our system, as well as the streetlights are going up. And they're starting to grade. They've dug the ponds mostly. They're starting to grade those and to sod those pond locations as well.
And it's crazy how fast that's happening. I'm going to join this with how fast the hospital's going up at the same time. So I'm sure that you guys are super excited about getting some of this stuff caught up before we do get hit with some rain, because there could be some backup in those areas, can't there?
Absolutely. As if you drive Price, I drive it several times every day because our shop is on Price. So we traveled a lot. There's continual flaggers, as we would expect for this type of project. It's an $80 million project. It's a lot of infrastructure going on the ground. So we've got those flaggers out there to keep everybody safe, keep the traffic off of the workers, and make sure the traffic passes cleanly through. But it can, yes, as it rains, the rain will cause delay more on the construction side. For us, if we have heavy rains, it slows down that contractor. So this dry weather is really helping us stay on course. We probably still have another 2 years of this project left before completion. But we're knocking it out. Like I said, we're at roughly 35% right now.
That's great. So I know that weren't you on like last week? You were talking about I think you were a recorded message out there on Facebook talking about the canals and different things like that that this time of year that you're looking at. Wasn't that you?
It may have been another recording. We kind of do those and put them out as we get closer to the season. That may be one I recorded previously. But we have staff out there. We have several airboats that we use to monitor the waterways. Right now, what you're seeing in the waterways, because of the lack of rain and the high heat, you're seeing a lot of vegetation growth in those waterways. It's a lot of surface vegetation. It's not something that's going to restrict our water flow when it happens. Typically, what we need is a good rainstorm to flush some of this stuff through our system. Right now, our water control structures are doing what they're supposed to do, and they're holding that water in between the two structures that we can use if we need drinking water downstream. As I mentioned before on your show, right, their drinking water comes from our canals and our creek. So there's water control structures that hold that water back. So when we have this kind of a dry season, we can provide water to the residents.
You know,
One of the things we have to be very careful about this time of year, when it is this hot and the rain's not coming, is if we go out there and try to treat that waterway to reduce the amount of vegetation, it can cause depletion of the oxygen in the water, right? As that plant material breaks down, it depletes the oxygen in the water, which can then affect the fish. So we're very cautious this time of year about using any herbicide until we start getting some rain and we can ensure that we don't affect the environment any more than we have to.
yeah, we try to be minimal at that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's the only time you'll really see us do that is if we have, and typically we'll get that with our first grow, and a lot of that's because of the runoff from our yards and our fertilizer that gets washed into those waterways and feeds that vegetation, that nuisance vegetation. We'll go through and when we see an area that looks like it may start to slow down our drainage, we will go ahead and treat that. But typically we treat maybe twice a year, and that's in problem areas.
You know, we have this other problem that I know that a lot of people look at. That's private roads and public roads. And can you kind of educate everybody on where some of these problem areas are that you're getting reports on that aren't ours?
Sure. So there's a fine line, right, between what's public and private.
Yep.
They're obviously your gated communities are private roadways. Those the city doesn't maintain. We go in, we service them for trash, we service them for emergency services, but we don't do road work, we don't do street lights, we don't do sidewalks. There are certain areas that are alleys behind some businesses that you'll see that are private. They're owned by those businesses. And there's a few of them out there that we get constant calls because there's potholes or there's a problem there, or a missing stop sign, something of that nature. Those are private. So unless it's a life safety issue, we won't go in there and do anything. If there's a missing stop sign at one of those and it's on one of our main roadways leading up to, we'll go and we'll address that in a temporary fashion until we can get a hold of that property owner to get them to fix that. But typically the problem areas that we find are the ones that are around these small businesses, that the alleyways that run behind. The other properties are your HOA owned roadways and properties. The difference we have there is during hurricane season, right? We are not required to go in there. It's private property. We may not get reimbursed if we go onto that private property and remove debris. We want to help our citizens, and if there's a declared emergency and it's a life safety issue, we can go in and do that. It puts the city at risk of not being reimbursed. With FEMA making lots of changes now, we have to be very, very cautious of that. We still work with our HOAs. We right of entry forms signed previous to storms that would allow us to go in there if the governor gives us the go ahead to go in there and do that. In the past, we have gone and cleaned these areas up when needed, and fortunately, FEMA was able to reimburse us for that because they were of such extent that they declared. But we don't know what that's going to look like going forward with the changes made in FEMA. So what our recommendation is to the HOAs is you should have a debris management plan. There should be a plan to handle your debris in the case of a hurricane or an emergency, because you can't rely on the city to be there. We may not be able to come into your neighborhood if it's private.
And how often do we run into this problem in Northport? I would think more so now, now that Welland Park and those areas up there, these gated communities that are moving here in droves, so to speak, that a lot of people get confused with that, don't they?
They do, and we receive a lot of calls for all types of maintenance services in those communities. Everything from a street light being out, which may be a
got a rough connection,
light, or maybe so we have contacts for those people. for those HOAs typically that will give them, make sure they have the right people to talk to and call. We try to educate, explain the difference between the private and the public. And there's lots of questions about that, right? They pay a road and drainage assessment. They want to know what that assessment goes to if we're not in their neighborhood. Well, our assessment is tier based. So it's based on a few different things, but if you live in a gated community, you don't pay one of our fees, right? So there's different levels of what you pay. So if you live in a gated community, you would only pay for the portion that covers your main arterials and collectors, like your Toledo and Price and Sumter. So we have to educate to let everybody know that they are getting what they're paying for in their assessments, and that sometimes is a process.
So sorry, we got a question here. Since the citizens voted against the $15 million for emergencies, what will the city do if there is a second Cat 5 hurricane in 2 years?
That's a
you can take another deep breath. It's even with the reimbursement rates being cut, it's going to be a lot more difficult than it ever has in the past.
It is, and Northport being one of the few places that can't leverage and borrow money for this type of thing makes it extremely difficult. If you get 2 hurricanes in the same year, of course we're gonna use everything we can to make sure the city gets cleaned up and running as quickly as possible. I would say 2 large hurricanes in the same year would definitely put a burden on the city and our abilities to do the things the way we do them.
Well, man, you used a much nicer word, burden. You talk about a stressor. We talked about these things a lot in the last few years, and part of the problem with the first hurricane that comes through is everybody wants their stuff cleaned up right away. Well, that chunk of money comes out, and we're still getting money in from the hurricanes from the past. So, everybody says, well, the government will give it back to you. Just go ahead and spend it. Well, they don't give it back right away. And then you got to wait on the next storm. So it's interesting that, we're talking about dollars going into the government. There's a lot of expenditure out. And I know that everybody's dissecting the budgets. Everybody's going to save every cent they can. So sometimes you have to figure out a different bucket to start getting it from. That's why I was talking about the revenue streams that we all have. We can go get a second job, where our city can't go get a second job. So how do we stay resilient? And you've been at this a long time. What is it that you see that's going to make a young city like ours stay resilient? That's a tough question.
I think being progressive and proactive as the city, right? And I can speak for public works. I don't want to speak for the whole public works side, and just use 2 things in solid waste, right? The single side collection. Trucks only go down the street once instead of twice,
right,
to pick up that street, right? That efficiency was huge for us. The next big efficiency for them is the transfer station, right? So that's the upcoming efficiency. We have to keep looking for these efficiencies and ways to do better and do things, do more with less, as they say, right? Sometimes doing more with less has an upfront cost, but you have to be long-sighted and you have to see that vision down the road.
And we got to get there.
Correct. So those are the things, and I think the city does a great job at being resilient and being able to monitor itself and figure out the best way to do things. So I just think that we need the support from the residents. We need the understanding that to run a city of this size takes money.
So Elaine's got another question. How much longer would it take to pick up debris after the second storm. So I know we went through this, and man, you guys got creative, and we had a space that opened up, and we could utilize that for transfer station and get it done. But if we had now, we're kind of looking at things a little different. How would you handle that second storm and try to adjust?
Sure. So if we had an event similar to Ian as the first event, that's going to put a huge, we spent somewhere around $60 million, give or take, on just debris removal alone for Ian. So that was a lot of money moved out quickly. We recovered or removed debris probably faster than any of the surrounding municipalities that were hit like we were. Did a real good job of getting it out of town, getting it picked up and gone.
Yep.
The second event, large second event, I think you would have to fall back on your internal staff, because I don't know that you would have the money to expend that much on a second go round. Which would then take or you would have to bring in less vehicles for debris removal, which, as we saw, and I want to think it was one of the storms we had, a smaller one we had before Ian, where it took us 5 months to get the debris picked up, which was only somewhere around 50 or 60,000 cubic yards, where with Ian we had 4 months in, we had removed 2 million cubic yards. So it would definitely be a longer recovery period. And people don't think about the downside to that, as far as the morale and the mentality of the residents and the businesses when they have that debris staged for extended times. Everywhere you drive, you see it. It really does have a potential to hurt the economy here. So that's kind of why we do things the way we do and try to move it out quickly. We've got a great relationship with our debris management companies, and our solid waste manager, Frank Lama, does a great job of organizing that and getting that stuff out, while the rest of the team works to deal with the in-house side of things.
I got to tell you, every time I see Frank, I think his head gets bigger because we all talk about it, and you too. You've got a great team over there at Public Works. It actually is amazing when you get to hang out and talk and learn about what you guys do. But can you talk about the value of the insight, the management set that you guys have right now on maximize? Like, you guys talk about maximizing everything, and it's the maximizing is the efficiencies. It's not the cost centers. You don't want to max out the cost centers. You guys are trying to find the creative ways to really fix the problem without having to ask the taxpayers to pay more.
We really are, and we're understanding of the fact that without being able to borrow money, we're a pay-as-you-go city. So we try to keep that in mind when we look at our projects and the way to get these things done. We can't spread that cost out over the next 20 or 30 years like a lot of places can. So we understand that each project can be a stressor to the assessment that we place on our residents. So we're constantly, my team, I have a great management team here. We've got a lot of people here that have got many years in the industry, each specialized, like I said, 6 different divisions. So there's a lot of expertise in the building and a lot of different directions.
Well, we're unique in this regard.
And we put these guys in the same room. We have management meetings where we go through everybody's chat. May not have anything to do with it, with that project, right? They offer up good insight and ideas when we run into challenges. So I think leveraging all those that talent that we have here and putting them in the same room together as often as we do really help us come up with a lot of the efficiencies and the kind of ideas that save the taxpayers money.
Well, and the more that we all look at you and we say save more money, I don't, how difficult, and I got to ask this question because you're like I said before, your hands are tied. You can't go get another job. So when you talk about these efficiencies that everybody's looking at budget numbers, you guys look at efficiency numbers, and they both equate out to the same. But how do you guys analyze what's a good cut, what's not a good cut, or what's a good adjustment? I know the transfer station, you guys knew that in your heart of hearts because we'd already done it once, and you just know. And unfortunately, the taxpayers, they didn't get the message the right way. But it's things like that that I think we need to hear more conversation about it, so that we can get the messaging in the right format, because it's having these conversations a lot of times with the efficiency side of it, people get confused with dollars, and it's not dollars, it's the efficiency of what you're spending.
Correct. Time and energy, right,
Yeah.
is our efficiencies, and a lot of the work that we do here, because it's 203 people here. A lot of those people are on the road every day, doing hands-on work, right? So the transfer station's a pretty easy one in my mind. I've got 35 plus trucks that run all the way up out of town every day. Waste 2 hours, not waste, but use 2 to 3 hours to make that trip, and then come back and have to pick up more, right? So if I can keep those 35 trucks a day in town, not spending that, and if they're running maybe 30 minutes to our transfer station on the other side of town, that's a huge efficiency for us. That reduces the need for people, as I discussed earlier. When we got 30 to 40 new residents coming in a week, right? That's a new customer. We don't have a build up to that. They come in today and they're ready. When they get their CO on their house, they want their trash picked up that week. Yeah. So we have to plan for that, right? We can't. That's not something that you can say, we should have prepared for that long before, because we don't start collecting those assessments for that until that person moves in, right? Until that house is built, we don't even collect assessments. So we have to be prepared to take on that new burden until that next fiscal year when we start collecting the assessments for that. So there's a lot of planning and the efficiencies and routing with the trucks. But the transfer station is hands down, in my mind, the most important thing for Public Works right now, as far as projects that are ongoing. Besides Price Boulevard, that one's already underway, so I don't count that one. That's already, you can't stop that one now. The transfer station's the one that's in the forefront right now of the most efficient project we have on
the. What's going to happen when when we get the transfer station and it is efficient, and I know it will be, but how's that going to change? Is it going to be very similar to the transfer station that we currently have for recycling, where we don't have our trucks running up and down the freeway and getting rid of debris?
It will. It won't handle the debris side as much, as far as a big hurricane, right? We can handle debris in a small sense, but a larger hurricane, we have areas that we set that aside with our contractors. We have properties that we use just for that to stage it until we get it out of town. But what that means is, okay, and I'm gonna keep going back to this, right? 30 to 40 new residents a week, right? 160 a month.
Crazy.
So every 800 residents, every 800 new homes, I should be adding 2 drivers, 2 trucks, right? With the status we're in right now. So that's because we're traveling that 2 to 3 hours out of town with all those trucks every day.
Right.
So by building this transfer station, I'm saving people, right? I'm saving having to buy trucks. I'm saving having to hire more staff. That stretches us out. So the efficiencies we're going to, and that's what everyone's like, oh, well, does that mean you're not going to need as many trucks or people that you have right now? Well, I would say no, because I need my people, because I'm getting 30 to 40 new residents a week, right? By the time the transfer station's built, those people will be able to absorb that, but we wouldn't have had to hire another 6 people in or 8 people in and buy another, 6 or 8 trucks.
Well,
So
so
that's really where your savings are going to come in on that.
so people understand it's the transfer station itself. Use our recycling for an example, because how many trucks do we keep off the road because one semi is taking care of it?
Right. So we'll probably load 4 to 5 trucks in a semi. So out of the, say, 35 that I run out of town right now, you're going to run 6 to 7 semis, right? And depending on the garbage and the load, right, it could be more, but you're going to reduce that number greatly as far as vehicles on the road. And I can tell you, the vehicles never break. Phil, the farthest point, is it seems to be the nature of the beast. The farther the way you are, the more likely you are to break down. So
Knock on wood.
Exactly. But and I just say that to be funny. They break down everywhere. But one that breaks down at the landfill or on the road, that not only that 2 to 3 hour trip now runs into a 6 hour day or stop for that truck, and then we have to cover him with other trucks within his route.
And I've got another question. You want to read it out loud?
I can read that one. Can you explain why road and drainage or solid waste must pay into the general fund for services like finance or HR or the attorney or IT? So we do pay, both of those districts pay into the general fund for what I consider support services. Those services, as we're listed, are IT to keep our computers going, all our servers, all our systems, HR to handle our HR issues, our hiring, our discipline, and any other HR, health insurance side of it. City manager's office, right, to provide oversight to us. And you've got the city attorney who we keep very busy with all the contracts and things that we run through his office. So all those things are just support services that are provided. Finance, a big one, right? We keep them very busy as well. Public Works is probably one of the main users of finance, just because we have so many projects going on and so much work happening all the time. But those are support services. So we couldn't do our job without them. If we didn't pay into the general fund, we would have to hire people in and put them within in the district to perform those functions. So us paying them is just part of the support of the districts.
So the budget side of it, I think people are going to learn so much more about the budget side of it. I think they've ignored it for a long time, but the budget's not as easy as one would think, is it?
It's really not. We approve a budget typically the end of September when we approve it for the next following year. October 1st, we start a new fiscal year. By mid-November, my team's already working on budget again. So it's pretty much a year-long process for us, as well as the forecasting. For a department like Public Works or Utilities, where we have a lot of infrastructure out and around and in the ground, the forecasting for that and project forecasting, for the next 5 or 10 years, that takes a lot of thought, a lot of manpower to put that down on paper. Oh. But just the ins and outs, I know for my team, like I said, we start probably in November, and we go line by line. And I've got 4 different budgets.
Yeah.
So, 4 different budgets that go on. So we actually build 4 different ones here. I've got 2 districts. I've got an inter-service with fleet, and then I've got general fund, which handles our facilities maintenance side of things. So it's busy here at budget.
I do
want to say that we've got.
Got.
I do want to say that we have a great finance team. They are very helpful in us putting our budget together. They've got a fairly new team over there this year that's done a great job in helping us find some efficiencies within our budget as well.
Every time I talk to you guys, somebody's giving a little bit of credit the other direction. and that's kind of cool within the confines of the city hall, to kind of watch all of you help each other. Different concepts, different ideas. Not every idea works the same way in every department. So the creativeness of what you guys are doing, it can't hurt to have that round table discussion every once in a while, can it?
No, I really enjoy the team that we have as far as leaders in the city. I can say, and I've been in a few places. The support from peers and leadership here is something that I hadn't seen anywhere else, and it really does provide a great environment for the free thinking and getting out there and finding those efficiencies, right, and working through challenges, finding new ways to do things. I think Northport's on the cutting edge of that, and I've been impressed. I've been here since 2017. I've been impressed since I've been here with the way they do things and handle change.
There's been some really cool adjustments along the way. We talk about the recycling side of it, but look at the evolution in the recycling side. We had the baby, and it's grown up, and we're still adjusting to some things. The transfer station wasn't that many years ago. And we made that transition. You got to be glad, based on what we know today, that you made some of those changes back then. I lose you? I think I lost you.
You broke up just a little bit there, John, at the end.
I said, I think your internet's a little weak today, but
yeah, something's going on.
Yeah, something's weird. But I was saying the efficiencies that you did back then, with the transfer station in the recycling side, you have to feel pretty good that you did it back then compared to now, because you were already working on those efficiencies. That was what, 5-6 years ago.
It was, and that one paid for itself in the first year. That was an amazing move. I applaud Frank for making that successful, and he's always looking. Frank, I say that about Frank. He's always looking for some way to make it better. He sees the challenge in front of him. You won't find a guy that's looking to do better for the city than Frank. I'm proud to have him on my team.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Make sure you tell him I said hi.
I will.
I did post a comment up there from Mr. Chris Morales, and I'll just let you take it, because I think it's a compliment in there.
It is definitely a compliment.
That's kind of cool, huh?
That is cool.
Management to management. So talk a little bit about how, with hurricane season, and I know firsthand because I was two times in the EOC a couple years ago, and super excited to help, but super excited not to have to do it. But and I'll leave it right there because I don't want to jinx us. Yeah. But talk a little bit about how you guys are preparing now for hurricane season, in the fact that we're talking about a possible change in reimbursements and taxes and all this reduction of things. But how are you guys analyzing things across the board, management to management?
Yeah. So as far as preparing for the hurricane season, and I think you're kind of leaning towards the financial side of that preparation. This is what our fund balances are kind of there for these unexpected events, right? Things that we didn't prepare for or weren't expecting, not of any fault of our own, but things happen. And I would say that's one of the reasons that, when people look at fund balances and look at budgets and see money that's coming back and it's put into a spot somewhere as part of a fund balance or a reserve. There's a reason that money's there. If we didn't have those reserves back at Ian, we would have been in a much place than we were. And even the following, couple of storms we had with Helene and Milton, we pulled and did that. We pulled our resources and did most of that cleanup in house. And there was a couple of reasons for that. One, felt at that time we had probably 50 or 60,000 cubic yards on the ground that we could handle ourselves in a timely manner. Secondly, we were trying, to try to get debris management company to come here with the devastation that had gone on up in the Carolinas in that area where they were all, focused because they took more of a brunt than we did. Would have been a difficult task to pull vehicles out of that area to bring them here when we could have handled it ourselves. So those two storms we did handle in house, and I felt that went pretty efficiently. It set us maintenance, but as far as some of our maintenance projects that we had going, but it's not anything that we didn't, we weren't able to catch up on.
Yeah, I just remember what we went through before and how fast we had our city cleaned up and looking amazing compared to some of these other communities. How have we addressed the people who take those bigger contracts? What are we looking at there? So that you can highlight this, in the next couple of years, there's going to be some restraints on some of these things. And I know what kind of pride you guys took into shining up our city again. It's going to be a different pace along the terrain that we're going to have for sure. I hope not. So maybe we won't have such a big storm, but how's that looking in conversations right now?
So I think and I'm relating this more to a FEMA reimbursement side, right? We don't really know what's going to happen with FEMA.
Yeah.
And we haven't seen any events right now to see how they're reacting to them, whether it be an event here or somewhere else. So I think we're in a wait and see kind of how FEMA is going to react to the next disaster. Not that we wish that on anyone,
No.
but just to kind of get a feel for what reimbursement will look like. It may change the way we have to do things. It may, there are times where people pull everything out of their backyard and it was, storm damage and they put it out to the curb and we pick it up. Those things may change. FEMA may get very strict, or we may have to get very strict to make sure we get reimbursed. And reimbursement does take time. I can tell you that we're still receiving reimbursement from Ian.
Yep.
I know we received some money this past week. I was going through my emails. So that money's still coming. It's trickling in, but it's years later, so we had to front that money.
Yeah,
that's what those fund balance and reserves are for.
It's not giving the money back for free. It's refilling the coffers that paid it out. That's the hardest part to manage, especially if you have back-to-back storms. So I'm going to ask a Chris Morales question, because talk about the way you handle technology and push your resources and make things happen. Our police department is, bar none, doing everything they can to use technology. What are you guys doing to use technology and help illegal dumping?
So we've partnered with them, with PD. We've worked over the last probably 4 or 5 years with them on a project that allows us to capture some video at some of our intersections, and think about that twofold. I use those cameras at our intersections to monitor traffic. I can get traffic counts through those cameras. I can also check my signals. If I get a call that a signal's not working right, my team can get on the cameras. They can take a look at that signal and make sure that it's functioning right. Or if it's not, we can actually see what's going on there. Much like when you take your car to the mechanic, you
Yep.
get there and the thing stops making the noise it was making. Well, we get out to a signal and it's working, properly when we get there. So it's nice to be able to verify that something's going on and have our team handle it. As far as illegal dumping, that's one that we were able to get some cameras in some of these areas that were known for illegal dumping, and PD has worked very hard. They've got some officers that are dedicated to that kind of detail now that we worked with years ago. I can tell you that our illegal dumping budget, just cleanup on the road drainage side, used to be somewhere around $80,000 a year. That has reduced greatly since the technology and the bringing on of the officers that monitor that, and especially in the eastern part of our city where there's not a lot of homes. It was a huge problem out there. So it has dramatically helped us reduce costs.
You know, I don't know that people think that way. I just want to go get rid of it. Well, somebody has to clean it up, and those empty lots out there, they're not doing it. So it's you guys.
It really is, and if it's in the right of way, you know, it's not solid waste; it's road and drainage. So solid waste only picks up if there's a house on the property. So anything that's illegal dumping out in those kind of desolate areas falls back on the road and drainage district.
Well, we still get what, 2 bulk pickups a year, right?
Correct.
That
Yep.
probably is going to go to 1 at some point if we have to restrict some budgets. But you know, all these things that we're doing, and we're talking about efficiencies. Well, you guys just partnered with the police department and fixed your efficiencies, but it also gives them coverage out there too to see what's happening. So that's a great partnership you guys just formed and described.
It really is. It really is. It's been teamwork, and those, you know, having the ability to work with the other departments like that and so closely with them has been a treat in the city of Northport. I can tell you that, because there are a lot of places that the departments don't work together quite like that.
Well, and I think we do it across the board. And I tell you, I've been here 25 years, and I've watched it. I've watched us grow up with our city. Our leadership has transitioned. It's done a lot of things, and it's not knocking on the past, because you have to have a past to get here. But man, just watching some of the exciting things that we have going on, and the vision of I think it's more fun for you guys at work trying to figure out how to cut costs, and I shouldn't say cost. I should say, you know, make it more efficient. You guys are always challenging yourself. Do we have anybody that we count on in our local communities that we look at, or do they look at us?
So we're one of those cities that kind of does it all. So we have how do we make single side work, right? Their people would never go for it. How do we do this? How do we do that?
Right.
They look at the city of Northport as an example to try to get things done, and the way they should run their operations. You know, everybody went from dual stream to single stream recycling, and now they're trying to figure out how to go back. Well, once you go back to single stream, nobody wants to go back, because the residents now are trained a certain way, and they're not going to want to change their habits, right? We've got great residents in Northport that supported this from the very beginning, and it shows, right, in the savings that we have, and we can pass through their assessments back to them.
You know, we're kind of getting at the end of the hour. We've got 2 minutes left, maybe a little less. I'm going to throw it back at you. You want to talk about anybody on staff, any awards that you guys have gotten, anything like that you want to throw out there?
Sure. So we've just received our reaccreditation for the American Public Works Association.
Nice.
We went through our reaccreditation. We're one of the, you know, there's a handful of agencies that are accredited through APWA throughout the country. We're one of those. It just gives us guidelines that we follow, that are national standards for the way we do our, you know, operating and our operations. And I can tell you that some of those SOPs and policies that we write for that reaccreditation and the accreditation. Those are where some of the other municipalities are picking up on what Northport's doing. And you'll see those, they call them model practices that they'll send out to other organizations because we've achieved so much with some of these policies that they need to share them with the peer groups. Other than that, I've got a great team here at Public Works. I'm proud to be a part of that team. I have since 2017 when I got here. I'm fortunate to have a great bunch of people I work with, and it's a pleasure working for the city. And John,
Awesome.
I always have fun when I come on with you.
Yes, and I missed you, man. It's been a while.
It has been a while. I've been sending Frank your way.
I know. I miss him too. I right now I think I've seen both of you about equal.
Right.
If I don't come to City Hall, it's been a minute since Frank's been on. I will promise you this: it's not been a minute since somebody's mentioned his name. So
right.
Every time I mention the recycling program, Frank Lama comes out. I don't know why. It's just synonymous with the program. But everywhere I go on vacation, and I tell people what we do, they're just like, what? That's what makes us different. When you realize, and people think I'm just bragging about the city, and I am. Holy cow!
Right.
We've got some really cool stuff. If you're knocking it down, fine. Just keep knocking it down. I don't mind building it up. And you know what? There's build up and there's adjustment. You don't knock it down. You guys are adjusting. You guys are finding solutions. And that's I think that's what excites me, is that we're not looking at this as a all hands barred just tying us down and we're going to cut the budget. You guys are getting creative and talking to each other and trying to find the most efficient way to do almost every project. Now the flip side of that is some of these projects, the way you save money is to actually get them done.
Absolutely.
So I hope that the citizens wake up and in the very near future allow us to borrow some money so that some of these things can get done and maybe even protect us in an emergency event. Because when the coffers go dry, there's only a handful of people called taxpayers that are going to pay that back. And 2 storms, those coffers are dry, and then you got to wait years for the reimbursement. So everybody start thinking, what if it were me? What would I do? Not saying say yes. I'm just saying think about it. Everybody needs to put their thinking caps on and understand that the last time I heard the government say take your money back, they found a way to get it back again. Only this time they're doing it at the state level, and they're expecting everybody at City Hall to do it. So they don't want to be mad at it anymore. So they're going to shift it downstream. I know what they're doing. It's a great game plan, but it's a tough thing for you guys, and
it is.
I'm 100% behind you because I think we got a great team, and I think we'll find a way. That isn't saying that there's not going to be some hard knocks along the way, because there is. So I appreciate your time, buddy. I lose you again?
No, I'm here. Can you see me, John?
Yep, I can.
All right. Just one last shout out, Deputy Chief Morales, for the kudos. Appreciate you.
Yep. Elaine Emmerich, thank you for your question. And Dory, nice seeing you on Dory Mills. And everybody that gives some love and likes, please share this out, because the more that we can get the information into the right hands and educate people, the better off we are. And Mr. Chuck, I appreciate you so much. And thanks for being part of the live stream.
Absolutely. Thank you, John.
All right. Talk to you soon. August 31st. Keep this in mind, folks. August 31st. I'm going to give a shout out right now. Florida Wildlife is coming on, and we're going to have a great conversation. Guys, he's a tortoise guy. He's got all kinds of wonderful things to talk about, and we're going to stay live on the air for as long as you all ask questions. So I'm hoping not midnight, but we'll start at 3:05 and we'll see how long it goes. But we'll talk to you soon. Bye bye now.